All right, hello wine drinking people. Today is Friday, the 8th of October. Getting around to a little of the drinking that I've done over the last week here, and this is one of these events that, when people call me up and invite me to a California cult tasting and say they're showing Screaming Eagle, I erase everything from my calendar, drop what I'm doing. It's not very often you get a chance to taste these cult wines of California. I'm lucky. I've been able to taste Screaming Eagle a number of times in the past. We showed it all of our cult tastings. But when Bob Malner from the Hollywood Wine Society says I'm doing a cult tasting, we're going to be showing Screaming Eagle, Harlan, Colgan, and several other great small producers. Like I said, I clear my calendar. And this last Tuesday night, that's just what they did at Sage. These guys do a tasting once a month, the oldest wine group in Florida, and they do an incredible job. Every tasting I've ever been to with these guys, it's a learning experience. And they usually like to throw in a curveball, or at least Bob does at his, and show one of the flights blind at least. So we did have a Bordeaux thrown in the mix, of course, with the Screaming Eagle flight, just to see if anyone could tell the difference between the California wines and the Bordeaux. All right, we started out tonight with the winery called Barbera Vineyards, which this is a famous viticulturist. He's done Grace Family, several other very famous vineyards in Napa Valley, and he has Cecilia Welsh make his wine. And this wine's very expensive, man. I mean, it goes from $65 to $600 on Wine Searcher, and really limited production. I think they started with just like 50 cases or something minuscule like that. I think this is the second or third vintage, the 99. Wine had kind of a medicinal note to it: mint, mocha, dried tobacco spice, a little bit of beef stew kind of character, oxidized note to that red currant and plum fruit on the nose, but really smooth and elegant on the palate. Probably the most drinkable of the first flight, but a little bit underwhelming considering the lofty price tag. Next up, the Diamond Creek Lake Vineyard from Diamond Mountain, 1999, is all these first flight wines were from the 99 vintage. A vintage a little bit tannic and, somewhat, I don't want to say underrated at first, but underrated at first. There were a lot of people that didn't think these wines were going to turn out to be much, and they've turned out be very good, and a lot of them still very young. Like this Lake, a distinctly earthy wine. They make 4 different single vineyards. Well, really just 3 at Diamond Creek, and this Lake is a small 3/4 acre parcel that only when the conditions are right do they make this wine separate. As a matter of fact, they've only made it 10 times since 1972. Keep reading on this offer. You'll see an offering. We have one of the biggest selections of Lake available anywhere in the world on this offering, as well as an offering of all the other vineyards that we had in the store. This wine I really like, and you could definitely mistake this for a Bordeaux. Eucalyptus, mint, a little bit of barnyard, and really rustically fashioned. A little medicinal note to this wine as well, but lots of everything else here. Currant and black plum fruit showing. Cigar box spice, really tannic still on the palate, but lovely balance and freshness, and really nice. One of my favorite wines of the night, and only scored 84 points in a Wine Spectator. Wow. All right, Arajo Altagracia. Well, Arajo, Bart and Daphne Arajo bought the famous Islay Vineyard in 1990. Joe Phelps still kicking himself in the butt for not stepping up and buying this vineyard, because one of the greatest vineyard sites in Napa Valley. And the Altagracia is their second wine, much more forward, easy to drink. Coffee, kind of red cherry and currant, dried tobacco spices, some light smoky notes on the nose. Fairly complex bouquet, smooth and silky texture, really drinkable style. A little bit of heat showing up at the end, but still really nicely balanced. And then the Islay 99, one of the wines of the night. This wine always is. One of the greatest vineyard sites up near Calistoga on the Silverado Trail. And this dirt here, it's just something special about this. The wine has an incredible array of fruit, minerality, and really nice balance there too. A lot of everything in this wine, and on the tongue, still a baby. This wine could go another 15 or 20 years. And as I said, the contender for wine of the night, in my opinion. All right, Vineyard 29. This is the second flight here. We started out with one of the cult wines of Napa Valley, Vineyard 29. Hey, all these were cult wines. But this is right next door to Grace Family, and a really fine wine. I've always liked Vineyard 29. To me, these wines are really showy and very drinkable. One of the hallmarks of Vineyard 29, almost at any stage in their life. And 95, a great vintage in Napa Valley, but followed 1994, which got much more hype. So you can still find 95s to me, almost as good, if not as good in quality at a cheaper price than 94. This one had kind of a dried fruit character, cigar box spice, currants, red cherry fruits, maybe a bit of Brett there too, kind of a little funk in the aromas, but very smooth and drinkable, as I mentioned before. The most drinkable of this flight, a little milk chocolate and that cigar box spice at the finish. Excellent juice. Colgan Herb Lamb, another tiny production wine, 350 cases. They no longer get fruit from this Herb Lamb. I think 2004 or 5 was the last vintage. But this wine always has this exotic green tea-like aroma to me and defining character with this, a little mint chocolate chip, currant and black cherry fruits. Really rich and complex, really layered, and another contender for wine of the night. Those herbal notes showing through on the finish with some distinct minerality. All right, Harlan Estate, the Maiden. This wine had a bit of that Band-Aid kind of aroma to it. Different blend than Harlan. Some people call it the second wine, but some red berry fruits, some spiced tobacco, dried floral nuance. A bit tannic still, this wine on the finish, and not nearly as impressive as the Harlan. Kind of a letdown in this flight. The Harlan Estate 95 wine of the night for me. You know, Harlan edged out Bryant in our Harlan Bryant tasting. Just a lovely, incredible bouquet of aromas: dark chocolate, sweet herb, cigar, cedar, exotic spice, black earth. Really complex, rich and decadent on the palate. Smooth tannins, but still really a lot of fruit, a lot of everything in this wine, and this wine still got decades to go in your cellar. Killer juice. All right, the third flight was served up blind, and you had to pick out the Bordeaux from the 3 California wines, which was easy. 2003 Las Combes was a Bordeaux, and it was immediately identified. And these wines were a little harder to identify when they were young because they had this incredible forward fruit, very California-esque, but after a few years, the fruit starts to fade. You really start to notice the terroir. Most of the group got that. And then, you know, the Screaming Eagle, to me, I mean, I've had it a number of times. I don't drink it enough to be able to pick it out with regularity, but they had 2 wines from Bond, the Matriarch and the Melbury. Those wines very similar. So for me, it was like boom, boom, boom. I picked out the 2 wines from Bond. Then I knew which one the Screaming Eagle was. And then the Matriarch, which is their entry-level wine, not near as impressive to me as the Melbury, so kind of easy to determine which wines those were. I could pat myself on the back, and I came up with that within just a few minutes. I said, I know which wines all 4 of these are. Not nearly this easy all the time, let me tell you folks, but if you do this on a regular basis and you know the wines, you know something about wine, not very hard to pick these 4. All right, the Melbury was really nice. You know, these Bond wines, just as good as the Harlan, I think. Very similar in style, very rich, but very balanced, and an outstanding wine. Lovely concentration. This 2004, still a baby. Most excellent juice. And the Las Combes, really nice bottle of wine. You know, one of the great Margaux today. You can still find this wine for around $50. I think we have a little bit on this offer. But it had that classic coffee and herbs and kind of light smoky quality, and really screamed Bordeaux to me. It's starting to soften a little bit, but still, this wine's got decades to go in your cellar. The Screaming Eagle 04 wine of the night. One of my wines of the night, maybe number 2 on the scale next to the Harlan, but, you know, really nice wine, really elegant, really decadent is what I could say about Screaming Eagle. This wine had a little VA in the nose also, but, you know, had a lot of everything else. Some very famous wines have had VA, volatile acidity in the nose, kind of reminded me a little bit of apple cider, kind of vinegar, just a touch, and the 47 Cheval Blanc off the charts with VA, 50 Chem, and these are, you know, considered maybe flaws in wine, a high level of VA, but if you have enough of everything else, and this didn't have a ton of it, but just a little bit. But it had this lovely milk chocolate, currant cassis berry fruit. Like I said, really decadent, most excellent juice. Another great tasting with the Hollywood Wine Society. That's what I had to drink yesterday, folks. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.